Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. Due to YouTube's changing quote-unquote community standards, I created a channel called Grumpy Old Fart over on Rumble, a free speech alternative to YouTube. You can see all of my stuff over there, including my political and social commentary, as well as my current events videos. The links to my YouTube and Rumble channels, as well as links to let you order my books, are in the description of this video. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. Now, on with the video. Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing a military blunders video on Midway. In June of 1942, Japanese naval forces under Admiral Yamamoto suffered a devastating loss to American forces in and around Midway Island. Midway was America's westernmost outpost. It sat 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii and it was an early warning and listening post. The Japanese referred to it as Hawaii's sentry. The sentry for Hawaii. Yamamoto thought that if he eliminated it, it would demoralize Americans so much that they would force their government to sue for peace. and it would give them a good shot at getting to Hawaii too. So, you know, if they had a base that close, yeah, hell yeah. He drew up a plan which would commit virtually the entire Japanese Navy to the attack. This would give him overwhelming naval superiority. Now, let's think about this. If he succeeds in this, not only can he launch major assaults on Hawaii and have a good chance to take it, I mean overwhelming chance to take it, but it would demoralize the American people to the point to where they would get their government to sue for peace. That's his brain working. If that's the case, this one attack could have literally knocked America out of the war. He would have won the war with this one attack. So I understand him committing everything to this. The Japanese High Command immediately changed the plan, reducing his naval strength. They also added two new objectives to the plan. The first was an attack on the Aleutian Islands to the north. Their reasoning was they were going to try to draw American forces away from Midway to make the job easier. The second objective was an assault on Port Moresby in Papua New Guinea. This would allow Japan to threaten Australia. This would further divide Yamamoto's forces. Now, I understand the reasoning for wanting to divert American forces away. The problem is, with Yamamoto's plan, you put all your eggs in the same basket and then you crush the basket. You see what I'm saying? It's going to sound bad. Yamamoto's plan was better. Okay, let's get into the rest of it here. American naval forces attacked the Port Moresby strike force in the Coral Sea. Yamamoto had loaned them 3 carriers. The carriers were supposed to help with the attack there and then come back to help him with his attack on Midway. But the American naval forces attacked the Port Moresby strike force in the Coral Sea. They sunk one Japanese carrier, heavily damaged another. They also stripped the third of its aircraft. The Japanese were convinced that they had sunk both American carriers in the Coral Sea, Lexington and Yorktown, while in reality, Yorktown limped back to Pearl Harbor for repairs. There were 2 other carriers at Pearl, and Yamamoto knew that they were there. That's why he wanted all the overwhelming firepower. Now, codebreakers identified Midway as the target of Yamamoto's forces. Repairs on Yorktown were rushed, and all 3 carriers steamed from Midway. Yamamoto did not bother to confirm that the carriers were still at Pearl Harbor when he launched his attack. The Aleutian campaign did not draw American forces away from Midway, and in fact, it utterly failed anyway. You can do. I could probably do one of these military blunder videos on the Aleutian campaign. It was crazy. The Americans that were on the Aleutian Islands and in Alaska fought hard. and the Japanese were ill prepared for it. Anyway, it failed. The initial air assault on Midway damaged the runway but did not knock it out. It also left most of the American aircraft intact. When the Japanese planes returned, Yamamoto ordered them armed with bombs for another strike. While they were being fueled and loaded, American torpedo bombers from the 3 carriers attacked. This was a surprise because Yamamoto only knew of 2 carriers, and he thought they were all the way over at Pearl Harbor. He didn't know they were close by. Virtually all of the torpedo bombers were destroyed. Yamamoto, at that point, knew there were carriers nearby, so he figured it was those 2. So he immediately ordered his planes to be disarmed, to get rid of the bombs, and so that they could be used as fighter cover for the fleet. Zeros are multifunctional. They can be used as fighters. They can be bombers. Torpedo planes. They do everything, and they do it pretty good, but they don't do anything really well. Well, he ordered all of his airplanes to be stripped of their bombs so that they could be used as fighter cover. While that was going on, American dive bombers attacked and destroyed 3 of Yamamoto's carriers. The air cover that Yamamoto had was down looking for torpedo bombers, which are low. They come in low, they drop a torpedo and fly off. The torpedo goes and hits the target. Well, the fighters were down there looking for them, and dive bombers come in high, and they dive straight down really high, a high, steep angle of attack, and they drop their bomb and then pull out. That's what a dive bomber does. So they were out of position, and they couldn't defend the carriers against the dive bombers. 3 of his carriers got destroyed at that point. American losses were 1 carrier, the Yorktown, and 1 destroyer. Japanese losses were 3 carriers and at least 2 heavy cruisers. This was the beginning of the end for the Japanese fleet. They had no way to replace those lost carriers. Their industrial might wasn't what America had. America could replace their losses, and Japan couldn't. So that was the beginning of the end. All in all, the Midway invasion plan was fraught with problems from the onset. So here's the analysis. Yamato's initial plan was good, and in my opinion, it was the way to go. If he could have taken Midway, it may very well have ended America's participation in World War II. Warriors fight and politicians lead. This was the situation here. Japanese intelligence services failed on a number of issues, but the main problem was the high command stripping forces and then adding objectives, which not only forced Yamamoto to divide the forces that he was left with, but added unwarranted levels of complexity to the plan. You want attack plans to be simple. Keep it simple, silly. And when I was in the Air Force, it was keep it simple, stupid. The reason you want it simple is because it's more flexible. You can adjust your plan as needed. If it's really complex, the more complex it is, the more things can go wrong. And that's what happened here. Finally, Yamamoto himself broke one of the cardinal rules of warfare. He assumed where the American carriers were. Naval intelligence told him, the Japanese naval intelligence told him that the 3rd carrier was sunk, while in actuality it was repaired and did in fact join the fight. This whole invasion thing plan for the Japanese was a shit show from the get-go. And most of it was not Yamamoto's fault. I'm just saying. He did bear the brunt of it, and he was responsible because he was in charge. But most of it was not his fault. All right, well, what's that old adage? War is too important to be left to the politicians. Hope this finds everybody well. You folks have a good day now. God bless one and all. We elect cookie-cutter politicians every single election cycle. Yes men who maintain the status quo and do just enough to make us believe the system still works. Imagine, if you will, a president who actually tries to fix things. If you like action, political intrigue, and a righteous crusade, check out my political thriller, The Righteous President.